priority, what they care about. The differences in generation, right? We know that there are differences between generations, just like there are in other groups. The words that we use, right? Las palabras importan. What words are better to use than others. What words we should not use when we're speaking to Latino voters or in general. Género, right? Gender, and religión, religion. And so these are all factors to have in mind when speaking to voters. And so temas de importancia, we're going to start here. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So, asuntos de importancia, I think that an issue that, comes up to folks' minds when they think about the Latino community is immigration, right? Immigration, I think, was a top issue for the Latino community here for a long time. However, that is no longer the case. So we don't want to generalize and think that immigration is a top issue for folks. I've included here this chart, right? That shows the comparison of immigration as a top issue within the Latino community and the comparison between 2016 and 2020. We can see here that it's decreased drastically in Arizona. It went from 45% to about 20%, in Nevada from 53% to about 21%. And we can see the shift here in priority. And so currently the number one priority for Latinos in the US is the economy here. And so we can see the growth in that here. In Arizona, for example, we went from it being a priority for 31% of folks all the way up to 46. Nevada went from 33 to 51. So truly this is the biggest issue that the community is caring about at the moment. But of course, it's not the only one. So here I have more data that I would love to share with you all. This is in order, right? So we can see here that the brown dot is US adults, and then the sort of yellow here is Hispanics, and where we lie in priority basis to all of these issues. And so we can see here that the economy comes in at number one, with 80% of registered voters saying the economy is a very, very important issue during the 2020 election. Of course, too, and no surprise here in 2020 that healthcare and the coronavirus outbreak, right, were number 2 and number 3. I predict that these are still very, very similar, with healthcare being the second most important issue here for the community. Of course, here we have racial and ethnic inequality, violent crime, Supreme Court appointments. Here we can see that the Hispanic community actually cares about this a little bit less than the rest of US adults here. But then here we have an issue that, and I've been extremely guilty of this, right, of believing that climate change is not a priority for the Latino community. And I'm wrong, right? We can see here that climate change, about 42% of US adults say that it's a very important matter, but 60% of Hispanic registered adults say that it is a very important matter. So we can see a big difference there, right? And we can see that it is a priority for the Hispanic community in the US. Immigration, we can see here, of course, the Hispanic community cares about it a bit more than the average than US adults, but still, after all of these other issues, gun policy, economic inequality, foreign policy, and abortion all the way at the bottom. I think that's another interesting point to make here, that we see that abortion is an important issue here for about 41% of registered Hispanic voters. And so it's at the bottom of this list of very, very important things here. So also trying to not assume that abortion is number one top of mind for all Latinos nationwide. Perfect. And so here we have, we're going to have some generational differences. I know I was speaking to Berta before creating this content, and she was saying, you know, like how do we know when to address someone as tú? When do we know how to address someone as usted, señora, doña, and these words that are, you know, part of everyday conversations. And so I would say it all depends, right? None of this is sort of written here in stone. I would say that a general good rule of thumb is if the person is older than you, calling them usted. If the person is younger, you could go ahead and call them by tú, right? We have, grateful for the technology that when we are calling voters, a lot of the time we have their age, we have a lot of information about the person, but I think usted is always a safe choice here. And then also Berta brought up this very interesting, right? The señora versus the doña versus señorita. I'm from a country, right, where we don't really use doña, so that I would say that I sway personally more towards señora or señorita. But again, you know, technically this means that the person is married, and technically señorita means that they're not married. We don't have that information in Van when we're making calls, right? But I would use sort of the same rule of thumb as tú y usted, right? I would, if the person I would say is, you know, younger than 25, you know, señorita is good, but then also for men, it's always sort of señor, right? They don't have like a señorito, so always, you know, going along that way, right? And then señora, I would say that that's the safe pick between these two here. I'm going to go ahead and open the chat a little bit. Abortion pro or con? Yeah, so that's a good question. The tables there that I was I showed didn't quite you know, say pro or con, but I can sort of make an assumption, right, that it could be either or. Really, we don't know until we get, you know, we talk to each individual person. But, you know, for older folks, I would say it would be against abortion. Usually, you know, these are all assumptions. And then for younger folks, it would be in order to safeguard that right. Again, an assumption. So, and then this is a generational differences of folks who support Democrats, right? So we have, you know, men 18 to 29, right? About 39% definitely voting Dem. This is in 2020, and this was surveyed in 11 states. Women, right, support generally, you know, the younger folks here support Democrats more, with there being a dip, right, from 39 to 49. But overall, pretty strong support among women here. But then we can see men, right, at 30 to 49, it dips just a tiny bit here. But, you know, folks that as men are older, support Democrats more, right? So this is it. You know, I think an assumption that a lot of people have rightfully made, that men, you know, younger than about 50, pretty much sway to the Republican Party here. Okay, and then some key words, some words that I would like for us to sort of, you know, talk about. And again, this is all you know, just I've tried to keep this whole presentation very factual. So Latinx versus Latino, Latina. This is a very interesting topic amongst the community and amongst academics. And so what is Latinx, right? It's an inclusive term, looks to unify the entire community, no matter gender or gender identity. So that's Latinx. However, amongst the community, we can see over here, only 3% of the Latinx or the Latino community in the US use the term Latinx, and only 20% have heard of the term Latinx, with most of the folks that do use it being young people between 18 and 20 and 29. So my general use of the word, I don't use Latinx usually, unless something sort of comes up. I like la comunidad latina, right? I like, that's the phrase, that's my favorite phrase, because it goes to show that like Latino, it doesn't necessarily mean men, just like la comunidad latina doesn't mean a women only. So yeah, I know this is like a very popular conversation, and things are constantly evolving. But personally, my rule of thumb is to not use Latinx. And so what do we use instead of it, right? Here in Arizona, we like to use Arizonenses, right? I think that it's a very broad word that the effect of Latinx, right? Without sort of it just has created it has negative some negative connotations amongst the community of it being like elitist, or of it being created by people that are not part of the Latino community, and it's sort of trying to be imposed upon the community. So I like to use Arizonenses, Californianos, Nevadenses, Tejanos, as words that are also extremely inclusive, but who add, some sort of identity there. I love Arizonenses, as a word and as a concept. And so that's what we generally use in the Spanish program here in Arizona. And so other words, right? Words matter, right? A word like illegal is never a word that should be used. The correct term is inmigrantes indocumentados. So yeah, there are words like that some people who don't care, right, about the impact that their words can have use, but that's definitely not a word that we want to use. And so then gender, women, right? This is according to research. Hispanic women vote for, have a higher probability to vote for Democrats in comparison to Hispanic men by almost 9%. So they're 9% more likely to vote for Democrats. And then, Biden beat Trump in that category, right, by 33 points. Latina women voted 65 to 32. And so we can see down here as well, Latinas voted 68% for Biden, right? Like that is, when we think about other groups within the US, like that is an amazing number. And that's why, advocating for Spanish language outreach and for outreach to the Hispanic community is such like a passion for me, and I'm sure a passion for many of you, because it's a demographic, it's a group that made has made a lot of Democrats win their positions, win their seats, and definitely created a huge impact in 2020, and gave us the best gift ever, which was Trump no longer being in office. Great. Great. So men, right? I think that Hispanic men sometimes get a bad rep over, based on their voting tendencies, but we can still see here, right, that Latino men voted 58% for Biden in 2020, and only 37% for Trump. So still a lot better numbers than other communities. But yes, this ideal that Hispanic men have sort of this in the culture, right, a machismo that has been prevalent in generations past, and who that isn't still unfortunately part of some cultures within the Latin America, means that they saw Trump more as this like energetic and like economic success, I think mostly, more than in comparison to Hispanic women, right? And so they see this man with economic success, and they think, that's what I would like, right? I want to be able to not work so much and put food on the table for my family and enjoy their presence. So I think that what I take away from this difference of men, Hispanic men versus Hispanic women, is the fact that Hispanics men, one of their biggest priorities is the economy and jobs. And so when we're having these conversations with Hispanic men who you might, it might feel like, oh, like they're voting for, or they're supporting, or they supported, right, Trump because of this machismo ideal. I think, and this is a phrase, right, that we assume best intentions. I think just bringing that back to the economy and jobs, which is a big priority for that demographic. And speaking right about facts, Democrats have passed the infrastructure bill that's going to bring a lot of jobs, right, all throughout the country. And speaking about that type of subject, I think would be very helpful. And then folks that are non-binary, right? More than 180,000 adults in the US identify as non-binary. And so if we know this, right? And I think too, a lot of this depends on what we know of the folks that we're speaking to on the phone. A lot of times we won't know, right, if someone is non-binary just by their vote builder profile. But once we know this information, right, making sure that we, of course, always use inclusive terms. I think this is 100% the perfect time to use Latinx in order to make sure that we are respectful towards this group of folks. But here some numbers, right? Most are young, live in urban cities, and have been born in the US. So definitely wanted to mention here the 180,000 Latinx adults in the US who identify as non-binary. Unfortunately, we don't have too much or any truly information that I can find about their main priorities or about voting patterns or habits. So definitely information that I look forward that we can have in the future. And so religion too, right? Religion is a big topic amongst the Latino community. And why, right? It's because 47% of Hispanics in the US identify as Catholic, 24% identify as Protestants, and 23% identify as non-religious or as like no religious affiliation at all. And so of course, like we have this big group of folks here who are religious in the US and who are part of the community. And so I think, when the previous question, right, abortion for or against, I would say that making the assumption, right, I'm making this assumption that of that 47% that identify as Catholic, when that group of folks, right, when their main issue is abortion, it can go, I know that there's a Catholics for choice movement that I love, but just assuming a lot of these folks are going to be against abortion, right? And so when their main subject is abortion, and they for that 47% would probably be against. I was actually speaking to Berta about an unfortunate campaign that the Susan B. Anthony organization is sponsoring right now here in Arizona against Mark Kelly. They have vowed $1 million in ads that say that Senator Kelly is not that he's pro-choice, but that he's pro-abortion, and that he wants to kill babies, and it's just truly a disgusting commercial ads. But I do see the topic of abortion coming up because of things like that, and so because we're pro-choice, right? And I think that this is not the messaging that would be a sort of adopted to English speakers throughout the country. But this is very specific for those folks that are very religious and who are part of the Latino community, right? That when they think pro-choice, they think like mandatory abort. I don't even know where that clicks, but making sure that we let that specific voter, right, know that because we are pro-choice doesn't mean that we are pro abortion, and they don't get the difference. And so basically what we say when we say pro-choice, it means that every person should have the basic human right to decide about their body, to decide whether or not they want kids and when. And so pivoting off of that conversation, right, I would say something like this that I have written here, like Senator Kelly apoya el derecho de cada mujer para decidir cómo y cuándo va a empezar una familia, y él rechaza los esfuerzos para dificultar que las mujeres accedan a servicios de atención médica vitales, ya sea atención de salud o programas como CHIP y WIC que ayudan a mujeres y niños a mantenerse saludables. Right? Because at the end of the day, that is the truth, right? Folks are trying to make vital medical attention for people who are pregnant hard, and that is never what it should be, right? And so bringing it back to estos son servicios médicos, right? They're medical services that people should have the right to have access to. And then these programs, right, like CHIP and WIC, that help women and kids and parents to have kids with health insurance and have milk and formula for babies. A lot of the times those programs aren't as mentioned. And so I think if there's like a very religious person on the phone and they're like, well, I'm against abortion, and I saw an ad on the TV that said that Senator Kelly wants to abort every baby in the state of Arizona or whatever, saying, well, Senator Kelly or insert name here of candidate thinks that vital medical services should never be denied to a person that is pregnant or a person that needs it, right? And like, who is anyways, this is a very big subject, but just bring it back to concrete things and concrete decisions and laws that the Democratic Party supports, I think would help those conversations. But we know, right, that if we have someone that is extremely against any of the things that we stand for, that it's unlikely, right, that they will change their mind if they have those very, very strongly held beliefs. But letting them know, right, that these programs and vital medical attention are all things that are on the line when Republicans, try to take away this basic human right from folks. Perfect. And so palabras y frases importantes, right? Words and phrases that are important. Berta has an amazing glossary that she has created, and it has like a ton of very important words in it that I'm sure she has shared or will share with you all. But we have some like very basic but very important words and phrases. Like, can we count on your vote, right? Podemos contar con tu voto or con su voto, right? If es usted. Are you registered to vote? ¿Está registrado para votar? What issue matters most to you at this moment? ¿Qué tema es el más importante para usted en este momento? ¿O cuál es el tema más importante en este momento? Inflación, midterm elections, right? Elecciones de medio término o de medio ciclo, lower living costs, reducir el costo de vida, create good paying jobs, generar empleos bien pagados, and lower taxes, reducir impuestos. Karen, yes, that is that is true. Senator Kelly does not want to abort all the babies in Arizona or, in the country. But a lot of times, folks are like, well, that's what I saw. Well, that's what I heard. But yeah, definitely worth saying like that's not true. 100%. Anna said abortion is super tricky. While many are pro-life, there's always ways to talk about abortion with Hispanics. It has to be done carefully. Yes, there are ways to talk about it. It is tricky, but I think bringing it back to, it being a decision between a doctor and a patient, and it being medical attention, right? That we shouldn't deny to people, can be very helpful. Great. Any words? I would love to know any words or phrases that you would like to know how to say in Spanish, that you have, thought of, or that you're like, would like some help right now. I think we're a pretty good group here. We can, I can definitely help anyone out with any words or phrases that they would like to know. Canvassing, that's a great one. And that's a conversation that I've had multiple times. So canvassing, it's, in person, we say recorrido puerta a puerta. So that just means like we're going door to door. I also have just called it like hablar con votantes en persona, speak to voters in person, just because, now like phone banking, obviously we have it separately, but definitely a recorrido de puerta en puerta, I think is the clearest way for folks that speak Spanish to understand, what you're going to do. Health insurance and other healthcare vocabulary. That is a great one. So health insurance, right? Seguro médico. But definitely very interesting. I can think up of some like more healthcare vocab that might be helpful to have and send it over to Berta. That definitely. Regional differences for ballot and ballot box. Laura, that is a great question. Regional differences for ballot and ballot box.
Like sometimes I saw on your slide you use la balota, I think, or boleta. Some people say, like some people think that's a ticket. Some people think that's a ballot. I just don't know. And then I've seen urna for like where you put the ballot, but I don't know if there's a better word.
Urna is a great one. That would probably be the one that that I would use. And then yeah, boleta is like the ballot, but I can see, and that's the tricky thing, right? We have so many different countries, right, that are in Latin America, and so many different sort of vocabulary. But what I usually divert to, especially here on the West Coast, is how do folks in Mexico say it the most, just because that's the biggest Latino community here on the West Coast. So I can definitely look into that. Perfect. Yes, Berta is going to send you all the glossary. Your distrito has a new representative in el Congreso, or how do you say representative? Representante en el Congreso, right? If it's state Congress, I would say Congreso Estatal. But yeah, representante en el Congreso. Absentee ballot. Oh, that's a great one, Naomi. Absentee ballot. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. Reducir el costo de vivienda, reduce cost of housing. Yes. Perfect. And then Daniela just also asked me about voter registration, explaining the more tricky voting laws to navigate, like in Texas or Florida. Daniela, I am from Florida, but very happy this year to not be running a campaign there. So unfortunately, I'm not extremely well versed on the Texas or Florida voting laws currently. And even, the Arizona ones are changing pretty soon, it seems like. So that's definitely a great question to ask folks that are working in Texas or Florida this cycle. Definitely a tough subject there. Of course, anytime. And then polling place, urna de votación, or urna, that means polling place. Again, that words can mean different things in different folks from different Latin American countries. But I think urna is the most understood one, the most common one, definitely. Great, thank you everybody for all the questions. And then, so for example, right, how do we put this in practice? For example, with Senator Kelly, reducir el costo de vida, generar empleos bien pagados y reducir impuestos, right? I always say that Senator Kelly's platform this year is really a gift to us here in the Spanish program in Arizona, because these are things that are in Latinos' priority lists throughout the entire country, but especially here in Arizona. And so I think that these are very relevant, right? And things how to say these things here. So, for example, reducir el costo de vida, right? Ayudó a aprobar medidas de alivio de COVID-19 y aseguró asistencia financiera, generar empleos, right? I think the infrastructure bill here is a huge thing that Democrats can go back to, right? When folks are like, I just want a good paying job. And then reducir impuestos. Senator Kelly is introducing a legislature to reduce, to basically remove the state tax from gas in Arizona in order to reduce the price of gas for everyday folks. And it would reduce it in about like 20 cents per gallon. So these are just like things, like concrete things that when speaking about these subjects, right, I recommend we just go back to like what Democrats are actually doing on the ground in all of these states, because truly what we are doing does reflect the priorities of the Latino community and of just communities in general throughout the country. Perfect. Amazing. So, our goals, of course, when we're speaking to Spanish-speaking voters, explaining the importance of this year's elections. Some folks, and that's why in Arizona, we're so focused on our voter education universe. A lot of folks just don't know that there are elections this November. And I don't blame them, right? There's like, we all on this call are very passionate and we, dedicate time into learning and looking into all of these things. But, if you're a single mom with, 3 kids and you're working, extra to put food on the table, like I don't blame you that you don't know that this year in November there's like such important elections going on, right? And that you should get involved. But that's where we come in, right? We speak to voters and we let them know that elections are this year and they're extremely important for every state, but of course also for Congress and our federal laws. And we also just collect contact information from each voter to be able to communicate with them again and collect important information about their asunto principal, right? Their topic of most importance. I just finished, I wrapped up a phone bank at 10 a.m. And I had a volunteer, right, say that he had this great conversation with a voter about gun control, and that's her main priority. And so, of course, being from Arizona, and Senator Kelly's wife is Gabby Giffords, and she's a huge advocate for gun control. And so they had a great conversation about it. And then he was like, she asked me for more information, and I wrote down her email. Would you want to send her more information? I'm like, I'm okay, of course, with sending this voter more information, but I think that was a great conversation that you both had. And I think you should continue that conversation with her through email and fostering that relationship. And so he's going to, and that's a great opportunity, right? To share more information about somebody's topic of importance, because we all have priorities in our lives. I'm a firm believer that I care about so many issues that plagues our country and our states, but not all of them are my number one priority, right? I have my own personal priorities of things that I care about as a person and as a voter, and so does everybody, right? And so being able to connect those priorities to things that Democrats are doing in order to help folks is super important. Amazing. Any other questions? Lloyd, I have an Arizona script question. Do you review or filled out that we complete with voters a number of times? Okay, that's great to know, Lloyd. I was not aware that this was a case. So reviewing comments is a little hard on Vote Builder, but we can definitely look up like keywords on comments that come up. So if in front of, let's use a keyword in front of every one of those comments, like voter maybe, or like actual, I think voter would be a good one, like voter, and then their information, because that is the correct phone number for that person, correct? It's just the wrong name.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so it is the correct number. It's just that it no longer belongs to the person that's on our list. So, I figure I want to get Mark Kelly's name out there. So I talked to them anyway. And then I've just been writing the information down in the comments. So you're saying before I write anything in comments, put in voter, and that would, okay. All right.
Yeah, or in the beginning, or even at the end too. But I can definitely look out for that keyword and change, and update that information.
Okay, because it seems like, I don't know how everybody else, but so, like for me, I probably do 50, let's say in the hour and a half that I call, I probably do 50 not at homes, maybe 5 disconnected. And then when I finally get somebody, I'm just so excited. And so even though it's the wrong person, I still think it's good because they're voters. So anyway, I'm repeating myself.
I'm just wondering,
all right, so,
sorry, if you added the name of the voter to that comment then below voter, and put the name of him on the box so that you can connect the phone number to that voter.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's for
of
Liliana.
course I put their name, and I put their response. And then I don't put the phone number because I say that the phone number is the phone number listed, that it's now their phone number.
Yeah. Perfect.
That seems okay, right? Okay.
Yes. If you put voter on there at any point in time, I will look out for that keyword on the comments and update that information. And I will also let other volunteers know that if they want to do the same, they can put voter, and we will look out for that.
Lloyd?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, even if that information gets lost in cyberland or never gets seen, you have done a good job talking to a person, and you might have gained a vote. So whether they know it or not, it still has a lot of value.
I know, but it just seems like if we had it there, then it could then be put into correct name, correct phone number. And then as we get closer to November, it would be easier to call them up and make sure that they voted.
Of course, of course.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course. And then Laura, great. Yes. If you also put like wrong number or anything like that, but if we stick to voter as well, I will make sure to look for all of these keywords, just in case folks also have been inputting, wrong number.
I just meant that they already got marked in the drop down as wrong number, and very few of those are going to have notes, explanatory notes. So if you wanted to go backwards in time, anybody that has a wrong number and has a note, those notes would probably be people that maybe Lloyd or other people were doing the same thing, putting the right person's name there.
Yeah.
Just thinking
I
that.
don't think you can put notes once you select from the first block of questions. Like once you click wrong number, all the other options go away for filling out. Is that correct, Liliana? I'm pretty sure that it blocks you from further information.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So maybe
No,
you select something else, like not home, and then put that there or something.
yeah, I mean, so
Let's
the
see.
way that Lloyd was doing it was very good. So basically just filling out like the information for that phone number, right? So like if they said yes to supporting Senator Kelly, just marking it under that profile, right? And then once we fix the number and connect it to the correct name, then we can put those survey responses to that name. But I do think it's helpful to collect the survey responses anyways. But then, of course, once I know that that's not the correct voter's name, then just switching that information. So I know that's a lot of like tech talk.
Yeah.
I think that just marking something in the comments, especially, so what the only thing that's not helpful is if it was just like a name and then a number with nothing, no other sort of like keywords in it. So voter or like wrong number or something along those lines really helps us out. I just don't want there to be like a name and then a number in the comment and no like other information explaining what that's about. Okay. Perfect. So Naomi has a question about one issue voters.
I want to know your experience. I'm talking about mixed backgrounds of people. It seems that a very high percentage of people in our country vote on one issue. Do you think that that's true in the Latino community?
I don't think that that's true in the Latino community unless it is an issue like abortion, where it's very, folks have strong convictions on an issue. But
see, in the non-Latino community and just the regular whatever mixture it is, it seems well over 50%. It's either abortion, it's either immigration or guns, and the right to carry arms. It pervades the general population. So it's interesting to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. And those are always difficult conversations. But I think that having, the facts on what Democrats have done on, a variety of issues, and then trying to tie the issues to that, and hopefully it aligns. But then also, if you know that there's like this, for example, the infrastructure bill that I know is creating good paying jobs, and millions of dollars were funneled into Arizona, are going to be brought to Arizona because of it. Bringing it a little bit back to other things, right? Like, do you care about jobs and the economy? Do you care about, gas prices, right? Senator Kelly's introducing legislation to lower the price. But because I truly, like, as a person, don't think that one issue voters are like truly about just one issue, right? I think that folks care about more than one issue just generally. So trying to bring it back to things that, everybody cares about. And like, for example, healthcare too, I think that's a very unifying issue. The economy, I think, is a unifying issue.
Thank you.
Yes. Daniela, do you have any nationwide campaigns to register Spanish-speaking voters that you could recommend? Not any nationwide campaign to register Spanish-speaking voters. I know that here in Arizona, we are registering Spanish-speaking voters. But Daniela, what state are you in? In California?
Unmute yourself.
Yes, in California. I also virtual programs did work as well.
Okay, I can, and I'm sure Berta knows a little bit better than me, but I'm sure that there are like campaigns in California to register Spanish-speaking voters.
Yeah, we're running one going to the Central Valley starting, and there's going to be a Spanish, neighborhood component or where we can go to reach out to Spanish voters. And I'll go look for that link and post it on chat. If you want to join us, we'll be canvassing there.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. And then this question that Karen has posed here is a great question. So yes, there is, because no list is perfect, right? And Vote Builder is not perfect, and we just simply don't have the data infrastructure on the Latino community that we have on other communities. But something simple as like, hi, hola, is this person available, and just sort of seeing what language they ask, they talk to you in. A lot of times, when folks get phone calls, I know this happens to like my parents, they're like, I don't speak English, can you, and then, just going right into Spanish, be like, oh, perfecto, yo hablo español, and then just helping them out there. But yeah, I think I sort of do the hi, hola, how are you, cómo está, especially in person, that's a little bit easier, but I know through the phone, it could be a little bit more tricky. Yes, Amy, I totally agree. Like whatever language they greet in. And then also, folks, it's pretty, like, I don't speak English, and then you could just go in and be like, oh, perfect, I speak Spanish. Yeah, in person canvassing. On the phone. Yeah, on the phone, it's a little bit trickier, but definitely doable. Perfect. Emmanuel, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Just any other questions?
This is a comment because I'm not fluent, pero puedo hablar en español. Y por eso, when I had a script that, like, from the Central Valley, but not everybody, it wasn't geared towards Spanish speaking voters, but it was a mixture. I did much better than when I knew, like I did Arizona during the election 2020, and everything was in Spanish, much harder on the phone. I could do it in canvassing. So therefore, if you're like me, not fluent, pero puede hablar y preguntar cosas, it's much easier to phone bank from a list that's mixed. And then people are very happy that you speak Spanish, but it's very different.
Okay. Yes, yeah, our list. So our list, I wish our lists were perfect. I wish our lists were 100% Spanish speakers. But we are slowly, gearing up that data in order to hopefully for GOTV have like a fully bilingual GOTV along with the English portion of the campaign.
Something else I want to tell you about my experience with speaking Spanish on the phone before the last election. I really learned a lesson. There was an older couple, and we really talked for a while. The goal was for me to get him to vote absentee. He did not. Older people, I've heard this before. They wanted to dress, his wife and he, and really feel good about going there in person during COVID. But it was really an education for me. And I of course, I let go of encouraging them to vote absentee. But
of course. Well,
Arizona, so
we're kind of getting to our time to say goodbye. And I don't know if there's any more pressing questions, but I think maybe we should let Liliana has a big launch today of
we have so
your voter day of action, right?
Yes, we have a weekend of action right now. 3 canvas launches today in both in Phoenix and in Tucson for Spanish program and 2 phone banks today. So big day, but so grateful to have been here with you all. Thank you all so much. I know, even if, you're not, born in Latin America, or if Spanish is not your first language, I truly do appreciate you, you all putting the effort to speak to these voters in Spanish. I think it truly makes a difference. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for taking your time and sharing all this with us. Is so helpful, and it's going to be immensely helpful going forward. So thank you for everything. This is a great presentation.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Happy Saturday.
Yeah, bye.